All right, so we're going over the graphic novel packet. This is something I used to give out to students and would quiz you along the way. And it's something right now I just want you to go over. This is going to help students that have never read a graphic novel before. There's also stuff for those of you that have read a lot. So it's a very good document. It basically comes from a combination of Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics. All right. So one way meaning is conveyed is through word-picture combinations. So where do we get the meaning? Well, it can be word specific, meaning the majority of the content comes from the word. Miranda gave me the keys and smiled. I know she's smiling from the picture, but I know more from the words. Her name is Miranda. She did an action of giving someone the keys, and then she smiled. If I was just reading the picture, I just see someone smiling. So you get the majority of the information from the words. You can then, number two, also get the majority of the information from the picture. If you were just reading the words, it says he did it. Well, who's he, did what? But by seeing the pictures, I know that someone's up to bat and he made contact with the ball. You got something called duo specific, meaning you get the same information from both. The text says he jabbed his finger, and then so we've got we've got a narrative box and we have a dialogue balloon. The narrative box says he jabbed his finger. The dialogue balloon, what the character says, ha, I jabbed my finger at you. We also have a person literally jabbing his finger at someone. So it's even, duo specific. The same information is coming from the words and the pictures. We have intersecting. Words and pictures working together in some respects while also contributing information independently. But there's that intersecting, that Venn diagram, the part when you put both together. So here, if I'm just reading the picture, I see he's into money. I see it looks like he's wearing new clothes. In the text, the dialogue balloon, I see he does have new clothes and he's talking to a girl, but you put all those together and he's trying to basically impress a girl with his money. Then you've got interdependent, which literally means words and pictures combined to convey an idea that neither would. She says, I'm so happy for you, but she is crying. When in the world would you do that? I don't know. Think of your parents at graduation, right? So if you read the text and then read the words, you're going to get different ideas. But when you put them together, something new comes out of it. Interdependent. Parallel. Words and pictures follow seemingly different paths without intersecting. And then you've got a montage. Words and pictures are combined pictorially. So this is the 7 ways in which we get information from the words and the pictures. Moving on to our page 2. It's just talking about the importance of adding and removing pictures. Remember, think about it like a cinema reel. Each cinema reel shows one shot. But really, when you're watching a film, you're watching a graphic novel that's put together very quickly and shown through light. And it's moving so fast, the reel's spinning so fast, you see everybody is moving, right? Well, it's like a graphic novel is you are cutting up the cinema reels and pasting each scene frame by frame. So it can depend for how many frames, how many panels there are, and in which order they're in. A man walking, he finds a key on the ground, he takes it with him, then he comes to a locked door, he unlocks the door, then a hungry lion jumps out and eats him. Now, if you take one thing out, such as the key found, it then becomes a key retrieved, like he's already had it before. Or a key found becomes the finding of an unidentified object if you take out the key. So now we don't know what it is. So it really has to do with how many panels there are and the sequence in which they're in. That's why we're calling it a graphic novel, or we're calling it sequential art. I used to show a lot of my comics in class to show 2 panels and to show you how that second panel, if you have an eye open, but then you have an eye closed, all of a sudden that together becomes an eye blinking. If you have a sun high in the sky and then it's low in the sky, all of a sudden those 2 pictures become a sunset. So the sequence is very important. Just to review, we've got all these ways of all these ways of learning, all these ways of reading something. So we talked a little about it in a movie, or I had some notes on the other day in a movie. We are reading things like camera angle. We're reading things like the lighting. You're reading things like the sound effects. Is it all of a sudden getting creepy? Well, in life, we read people's facial expressions and the body language, we read signs, we read art, we read musical notes on a page. These are all things at which we read. In a graphic novel, you can read the amount of panels on a page. You can read the dialogue balloon. Is it dripping icicles? You can read the facial expressions and the body language of the characters. You can read where they are within a panel. You can read the panel shape itself. There's so much literacy that goes into a graphic novel. It is one of the most multi of all genres. You can even read the space. And with this one, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is the famous wave painting. If you flip it upside down, it has the same imagery. It has that same yin-yang positioning. So not only is the wave important, but sometimes what's not shown is important. I'm aware of a panel in Maus where one panel, they show all these people in the ghetto, and then a little bit later, after the ghetto has been liquidated, they show the same scene, but there's nobody there. We are reading what is not there sometimes. You're reading the space just like in jazz. It's not about the notes played, but it can be about the notes not played. Again, the story is the importance of which panels are there and in which order you encounter them. Okay? Here's a story. Promise me you won't drink and drive, Carl. I promise. Vroom, here I am. Hi, Carl. Hi, Daisy. I'm sorry, Carl, but I can't go out with you tonight. What'll I do now? I'll buy some beers. Glug, glug, crash, rest in peace, Carl. Here's a similar story. Promise me you won't drink and drive, Carl. I promise. Glug, glug, crash. Rest in peace, Carl. You can even have, promise me you won't drink and drive, Carl. I promise. Rest in peace, Carl. Here, we only have two, but obviously the inference is to what happened in between the two panels. So is it necessary to show everything that happened in between, or can you get away with the subtractive idea of just showing the important things? So the sequence in which we encounter is important. Again, we here are reading left to right. This is a sequence of an eye closing. However, if you're reading manga, which goes right to left, now you've got a picture of an eye opening. So the way in which you encounter the panels, the order they come in, the sequence, that's why it's called sequential art, is very important. Again, for those of you new, you always go left to right, top to bottom, left to right, top to bottom, left to right, top to bottom. Whether that's the panels on the page, or whether that's the dialogue balloons or narrative text box in a panel itself, you're always starting at the top left and working to the right and working down. Now, just like that first one, where we talked about the meaning being conveyed through words and pictures, this one talks about panel transition. So you can have moment to moment, a single of actions portrayed in a series of moments. You can have action to action, where you've got one person or one subject portrayed in multiple actions. You have subject to subject, a series of changing subjects. I always think of this one as like a Superman, someone on the ground saying, look, and then you have Superman flying, and then someone else saying, so what? That's subject to subject. You can also have scene to scene. This one is across distances of time and space. So you've got the dinosaurs, you've got modern day, and you have the future. Scene to scene is showing you scenes across time and space. Aspect to aspect, well, here we've got the beach. So transitions from one aspect of a place. The sun in the sky, a lady sunbathing, birds flying. This one always reminds me of, your mother walking into your college dorm room and she's shocked. She looks around at first, she sees cigarettes in the ashtray. She looks around and she sees a beer can. She looks around and she sees you with movie posters or a TV blaring. She looks around and maybe sees unopened books. She looks around and sees laundry spilling out. She looks around and sees an unmade bed and oh my gosh, my poor baby. Aspect to aspect, transitions from one aspect of a place, like you're taking snapshots of a room or a situation. Last but not least, we've got non sequitur, seemingly nonsensical, unrelated images. So the two big ideas from the first page and this page is we are reading both in one panel, pictures and words, and where are we getting the meaning, and then we are also reading the transition from panel to panel itself when we read a graphic novel. Next, this one, I'm going to paraphrase again, but just look at the frames. One, you can look at the panel shape. That can often tell you a lot. You can read the panel shape. But also, what is being pictured in the panel? Look at this one. You've got the foreground, the gun. In the middle ground, you've got the guy with his hands up. And then you're even reading the background, this guy. So you're reading different depths of field within a panel. There is so much to read in a graphic novel. It is the most multi of all genres. As I said, literacy is not just reading nouns and words. Literacy is the interpretation and application of meaning to stimulus. So we are applying meaning to how many panels are on a page. We are applying meaning to the shape of the dialogue balloon. We are applying meaning to who's in the foreground and who's in the background. We are applying meaning sometimes to what is not shown. We are applying meaning to their body language, their facial expressions. There's so much storytelling going on in a graphic novel. It always amazes me, students, they read so fast a graphic novel. There's really so much to read, you have to stop and think about it. Now again, for those of you new, the bottom line you read, starting at the top left to right, and working down. Left to right, top to bottom, left to right, top to bottom, left to right, top to bottom. That goes for whether you are reading the panels across a page itself, or that also goes for within a panel, the dialogue balloons and narrative boxes, the way in which you read them. It's the same formula for our culture. Again, manga, Japanese, you're going to read different. We are talking about sort of American comics. Art Spiegelman he's an American writer. His parents were born in Poland. He is an American writer, so we're going to read everything top to bottom and left to right, whether that's the dialogue balloons on a page, top to bottom, left to right, or whether that's the panels themselves, top to bottom, left to right. Again, you don't want to have panel confusion, top to bottom, left to right. Sometimes artists, it can be confusing. Like here, you have an example of panel confusion. There are sometimes in Mouse where it is not always clear, and sometimes I will read the wrong panel first, and I'll have to go back and say, oh, wait a minute, no, he meant it to go this way. Just like any good reader, rereading is part of it, so if you find yourself reading out of order, just stop, go back, remember our rule, top to bottom, left to right, top to bottom, left to right, top to bottom. Now, again, you're thinking of each shot, each panel as a splice or a movie reel, a shot on a movie reel, right? It's a section of time that we are reading, and it's important to remember that as your eyes go from panel to panel, time is transitioning. Even if the image looks the same, here, time is transitioning. So you've got someone yelling from the crowd. You've got the narrative box. So the panel looks the same, but time is still moving, even if it's just a millisecond. Time moves when your eyes go from panel to panel. And again, the panel shape helps tell the story. Is it jagged and exciting and electric? Spiegelman uses this sometimes for a vertical panel to represent life, because someone is upright and vertical, versus a horizontal panel, someone has died. So the panel shape helps tell the story. Now, as I said, as your eyes move from left to right, time has passed. Every time you go from one panel to the next, a fraction of time passes, sometimes great, sometimes small. So here we've got time passing. How do you know time passes here? Well, you've got duplication of panels, okay? Let me go to the bottom one. How do you know time passes here? Well, it's not that all of a sudden the lamp is important. We know time is passing, or he is thinking, because the elongation of the panel. So again, panels represent moments in time, and when you go to a new panel, time has passed. So it can show you time is passing, or in this case, he's thinking, but still time is passing, because it shows duplication of panels. Time is going on. On the bottom one, you've got time passing. How do we know? The elongation of the panel. It is longer, the middle one. So it takes longer for our eyes to go from the left to the right side of this panel than it does to this one. So time is passing. The hardest one, I think, is the middle one. How do we know time's passing here? I'm going to give you a second. What's different? Okay? The answer here is the space between the panels. Look at the great distance between each panel. Time has passed. It takes our eyes longer to get from this side to this side. I'm going to continue on video